To have accomplished so much in such a short period of time is pretty fascinating. Chip, your book talks all about how this was kind of an accident. You wanted to be a baseball player. That's something you and Michael have.
Yeah, okay.
In
and
here
we are. There you go. There you go. Which clearly indicates our talent level, I think.
And I love the way that you guys work together, which for a lot of people, I don't know. I mean, do you think you can keep working together, have an amazingly successful business, you know, and consider you're being great parents and all of that? What happens now?
Yeah, I mean, Joe and I are firm believers that you can have your cake and eat it too. I mean, that's why we're living this thing out. I mean, a lot of people, I feel like, have to pick one or the other. You know, you feel like you go all career, and maybe the family suffers to some extent. Some people kind of weigh it opposite, and the family's the most important. That was kind of the family that I grew up in. You know, I feel like my dad turned down promotion after promotion to be home and to be at every ball game and some of the things, which again, as a young athlete, you can probably relate to. I wouldn't have traded it for the moon, but you know, there was one day that Joe and I just right after we had gotten married about 14 years ago, and we looked at each other and we were like, what if we could pull both of these off? Do you think it's possible? And I would say that it's extremely risky, because in theory, one might have to suffer. And honestly, that weighed a little bit into the whole concept of us deciding that the 5th season was going to be the last. We wanted to make sure that we really stepped back, made sure that Joe and I were on good footing, make sure that the kids were all doing well after 5 years of this. I mean, it feels like an eternity.
Do they like the TV cameras? What's it like for them?
I think the older they get, the more they're like, oh, we don't really, you know, I think it's more now, it seems almost like a job that they never asked for, which is what we kind of looked at and thought, you know, if they didn't ask for this, of course we need to pull back a bit. And I think a lot of that had to do with just our decision. We want this to be something where they feel like if they want to do it, they have the freedom to do it. If they don't, they're not.
The interesting thing about you guys is that honestly, I'm one of those people who didn't know much about Waco except the bad stuff before I started watching the series. And I read that you were saying they wanted maybe to start it and move it to Austin or Dallas, but you were like, no, this is Waco. It has so much potential, and now you're tapping that. Can you give us some anecdotes or some sense, now that you've opened the silos and everything, of just how many people are coming in? Because when we're having you guys on, makeup artists, people on the floor here, they say, oh yeah, we went to Waco last year, man, we wanted to hang out at the silos. Like, what is it, how much of a boom do you think there is?
I mean, we're thrilled to death to see this play out right before our eyes. Years ago, when we first got started, she had this little shop on Bosque. We called it the Little Shop on Bosque. And this thing was like 1,200 square feet, tiny, tiny little spot. And all of a sudden, the show comes online, and hundreds, if not thousands of people started showing up to this thing on the weekends. And so Joe and I would show up to the Little Shop on Bosque, and we'd do the dog and pony show. We'd take selfies, I mean, the whole 9 yards. Well, one thing led to another. Next thing you know, we couldn't even get in the building at all. I mean, it was just like, you know, lying around the block. And that's when we bought the silos, which is an enormous property. And now we're averaging about 30,000 people a week that come down to the silos in Waco,
That's
Texas.
A lot of cupcakes.
That is a lot of cupcakes.
A lot of people say that they've gained 5 to 10 pounds just by coming and visiting the silos, which is something we're proud of.
So 5 or so years ago, whether it was by design or not, was a pretty good time to start to kind of broadcast the opportunity of renovating homes. I mean, just talk about where the market is.
You bet.
Does the fact that you're kind of backing off from that aspect of it on television say anything about whether the market is still a good opportunity in that
I
respect?
think the market's hot. I mean, Waco, Texas has never been hotter. Literally, the state of Texas in general has never been hotter in general. So, I mean, you know, I think the market still has, from a housing perspective, a few years left in it as far as this amazing, you know, meteoric uptick that we've seen here the last 5 to 10 years.
I mean, because your whole premise is buy low, fix it up and sell better. So what happens if it's harder to find those properties?
Well, that's a great point. For guys like me, literally, the market's gotten really tight. I mean, you know, you go out and you try to buy a flip house, and you've got 10 guys competing against you, 4 of which had never done this before in their entire lives. So, you know, I mean, it's kind of
they don't know the right price, maybe?
Yeah, a lot of times you watch these guys go and like, hey, listen, this guy won't be around too much longer. I can wait him out. But, you know, 5 or 6 out of that same 10 are seasoned pros, and you just got to know when to say no. And we turn down houses left and right, but when we get the opportunity to buy right, we love buying and selling.
I also want to show people all the different, I mentioned the paint line that you have through Kills Paint. There's also the Magnolia furniture that I've seen in Pier 1. There's the Target deal, which you just announced. Bed Bath & Beyond. Meredith publishes the mag. This is a funny thing. I start watching the show. I turn around. You guys are everywhere, which is awesome. And I know it's important to you not to have to travel too much and to kind of get, for people like me who want to consume the brand, to get that out of Waco.
Sure.
Yes.
So how do you balance that with what people say, which is, but you got to stay authentic and you got to stay bespoke and you got to have local craftsmen. I mean, so what other ways can you kind of get this outside of Waco and scale it?
Great
It was
question.
important to us with our partners, and what they know is I'm a busy mom of 4. Every one of our partners literally comes to Waco, Texas. So when we're designing, when we're putting the magazine together, it all happens in Waco, Texas. So that's a huge plus that they really understood that. But I think for us, people were asking kind of from all over, can you help us with our house? And, with our young children, and we don't really love to travel right now in the season of life. I think for us, it was getting it out there, because our passion really is to help people in their homes, whether it be paint, whether it be decor.
Yeah.
We feel it's all about home. It all starts there.
Let me tell you what, the Connecticut people, if you guys did a show in Connecticut, you go to season in Connecticut, they are lining up. Before you go, we always like to ask people who come on about their biggest money mistake. Chip, this is kind of the premise of your book, sort of, but does one come to mind in particular?
Yeah, I mean, we were all in a small development in Waco, Texas. So we had gone from what I would consider to be small flippers and renovators to we had hit a couple of doubles. And we had put a little money together, and so we went all in this particular development in Waco, Texas. And I mean, just right as the market crashed. It was like 08 is when we were daydreaming about this project. We bought it in 09 and did all the infrastructure and put all the, all the eggs in one basket come 2010, and the market just fell apart. I mean, I remember like it was yesterday that, I mean, the phone literally stopped ringing almost overnight.
I mean, was that avoidable somehow, or was it just a lesson in?
That's a tough question. I mean, I think obviously, hindsight being 2020, everything's avoidable. But for us, we love the idea of the never quit, never give up. A lot of developers, I mean, we were small time, but a lot of bigger developers, I mean, they would find themselves in a predicament like this, and they would just walk away, And for us, we were like, look, this is a local bank who's trusted us with these funds. We've got a couple of people who had already bought houses in this development. So, I mean, 2 or 3 people, and we were like, we're not going to abandon this development. We know these people. We live next door to these people. So next thing you know, I mean, you go by that development today, and there are 36 beautiful houses. Looks like something you'd see in a Rockwall, Norman Rockwall calendar.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.